Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me now? All right. And, you know, but he went to the forums. I mean, one of the great collectives we have is the forums. I mean, many of us have never seen each other face to face, but have had exchanges on the forums, which is really nice. It's nice to have this where we can put a face to the name. At any rate, you know, and so Marco put the original Spin Tools up and he said, please give it a try. And so some of us did. Now I said to him, look, you know, people that know me know I'm full of opinions. So I will give them to you. And I went through, and to his great credit, and I thank him offline and online frequently, and everybody should, he listens. So, you know, everybody in this room that is using the Propeller is a real developer. We're doing real work. And so when we ask for things, he knows that it's meaningful. It will help us in what we're doing. And I've sent him a list probably 50 items long over the last year and a half, and every one of them he's incorporated. So I'm going to show you very quickly. We'll skim through and show you what's happening. And so for those that want, you know, again, we all started with Propeller Tool, and Propeller Tool, in a way, you know, because of an idea Jeff and Chip had to do the color background, kind of spoiled us. I'm a very visual person. That's why I like working in the entertainment business. The pictures, you know, I'm visual, I see things. And I think all humans are to a degree. And so that the color backgrounds, just now I get mad if I have to go write Python and Thonny or something. I said, put a color background in. You know, I really want that kind of thing. It just makes my life more productive. So the great thing is that Marco had sorted that out. And so we have that now in two different tools. We have it in Propeller Tool, which still works. I think, what is the compiler, Jeff, that we're up to? It is in, you know, because right now we're at 0.51 or 51. I don't know which numbering. 51 in Peanut, but Propeller Tool is, yeah, okay. But you're going to fix that before we leave, right? At any rate, and I'm going to be honest, and I've talked to Marco about this. He knows there are still, when I'm starting a project, I still start in Propeller Tool. Now, it's probably muscle memory and habit, but the other thing is there are some features in Propeller Tool that are not yet in Spin Tools IDE, particularly the bookmarks. I really use that hard when I'm in the beginning. And then there's another thing, and Jeff and I've talked about this dozens of times, the alt drag select ability to just move a physical block of stuff around. I use that a lot. It's kind of in Spin Tools, but it doesn't work as well. And the other thing actually too, and I just recently spoke with Marco about this, is the ability to do code folding, where you have the summary radio button up in the top, and then you just see the slug lines of the methods, but they still have the color. Now, you'll see in Spin Tools, there is an outline view. So we have those, but it's not in color. So it's good and it's nice. So even Marco said to me, yes, I want that too. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So I know that the bookmarks like Propeller Tool and the code folding of the code in the editor pane he's working on. But you know, it is a really nice tool. I'm very grateful. He's a nice guy. We're both Formula One fans, so we have that little side chat. I'm a Red Bull guy. He's, being a proper Italian, he's a Ferrari guy. And so, you know, we enjoy those little chats too. But let me go through and show you what's happening with Spin. Has anybody not seen Spin Tools? Okay, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. This will go quickly. Whoops. All right, do we have, I'm trying to get to the whole, okay, good. All right, so Marco MacPhalen, again, he goes by Maca in the forums. The software is available at his website. I think he also has it on his GitHub. Now I'm a Windows user, so for me, it's a really easy thing. There's no installer. He provides an archive. You download that, you unzip it, And then what I do in Windows, I'm sure the other operating systems allow the same kind of thing. I can go in and I can right click on the executable and say, put a shortcut on my desktop, and Bob is my uncle. I'm done. And I don't know the process for Mac and for Linux, but I know people are using it, and you'll see it all looks and works the same. Oh, here we go. So here's, as I mentioned, Marco is a professional developer. He's a consultant, and he's a maker like us. He seems, you know, I said it says C and C++, but Java does seem to be his real strength if I'm reading stuff correctly. And so there you go. And he has been in the forums for a very long time. He's a nice guy, very helpful. So here's Spin Tools. The key elements. It looks a lot like Propeller tool went to college and, you know, got some new stuff. And so that's nice. It's that comfortable feel, but it runs across all the 3 operating systems, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Really nice. It is easy to install, as I said. There's some, you know, features that make it really kind of nice. So we'll go through. And I will say again, I can't reiterate this enough. Marco is exceptionally helpful. If you report something in the forums, it's usually within a day or 2. I've never seen a problem run more than a week where he hasn't been able to figure it out and fix it. Now, just as what Jeff was talking about, you know, using the AI stuff, you have to give good information to any of us, you know, developers. We're all developers. We have clients. You know, I'm joking with my friend Josh, and others have heard this from me. You know, the root word of specification is specific. So be specific about when you see problems. And because sometimes, you know, they're hard to recreate. But Marco has been exceptionally good at finding problems. Because again, this is a tool that he uses. He's a Propeller consultant too. And this is the tool that he uses for his own work. So here's, you know, quick run through just visually. There's the Linux. As you can see, it has, I'm going to go through all the panes, but if you look right in the middle, you say, wow, that looks familiar. We see color backgrounds in the different sections of our code. So this is Linux. There's same, well, I had asked somebody that has a Mac to do that for me, so I'm not sure what the program is, but again, you see the same look. And here's Windows. Again, you have that all there. This one is showing his internal terminal. So you can use PST with this. You have to manually launch it, but Marco has a terminal in, and if you look down at the bottom of the terminal, it has a PST mode. It also has some other terminal modes if you're doing things with ANSI escape codes and those kind of things. So within the section, we have a toolbar that makes things, you know, less click or it's easier to use. This is the object browser is the same as in Propeller tool. It shows the architecture of our project and the libraries we're using. If you click on them, it'll open a tab if it's not already open. There's a file browser. Now this picture looks very, very busy. It's funny, my watch thinks I'm exercising because I'm gesticulating so much. You'll see when I show you live, I have this a little cleaner because you can tell it where you want to look normally. So I have a standard P1 folder where I do generic projects, a P2 folder, and then I have a work folder so that I can get to those things very easily. So that's the file browser section. Here's the main editor pane. It is an MDI, so you have multiple tabs on there, just like in Propeller tool. It's a little hard to see, but if you look just to the right of where that terminal is, you see a highlighted yellow vertical strip. So these are annotations, and it's really hard to see live. And I'm hoping I'm hoping Marco will brighten up the things. But if you have, for example, an unused method or an unused variable, it'll put a little yellow line there, and just to show you. And if you click on it, it'll say, "Hey, this method is not being used," or "This variable is not being used." If you have a red line, it means it's an error. So you have to fix that. Yellow, you don't have to fix. The red, you do. Now the interesting thing is, like, wait a minute, we didn't even compile yet. This is on a later slide, but Marco has his own, Propeller compilers. They're always running. So as you're typing, he's compiling the code or trying to compile the code. So you're getting live updates if there's a problem. This is the outline view. This is what I was talking about a minute ago. So this is like the summary view that we have in Propeller Tool, but it doesn't have the color backgrounds. What it does have, though, is you can see next to some of the sections, the con and dat sections, you can see the little arrow there. You can click on that and fold it down. So if you have a con block, and if you look at my programs, some of you have seen them, I do very small chunks of things. I put stuff where I need it. Thankfully, the compilers tolerate that. So if you have a con block, let's say, when you're doing a pixels thing, you had just color constants, you can click on that and it'll fold that out. And then you can see those constants without having to go find them in your program. You can see them right in the outline view. So it's quite nice. And there's a terminal we talked about a minute ago. It can be PST compatible. For those of you that maybe run any of my demos, if you try them here, you'll see in my demos, in my code, my kind of stock code, you'll see a thing that says, wait for terminal. The reason for that is that in Propeller Tool, we compile, download to the Propeller, and then switch over to PST, and then activate PST. So that wait for terminal is allowing you to do that. Since this terminal, like the one in FlexProp, is internal, Marco can control all that. So you can comment out that wait for terminal line in any of my programs, and it'll just run the terminal the way straight up. And as you see here, this is running, I think when I did this demo, it was my I2C scanner. And then we have a debug console. So there is a bit of the P2 debugging features, specifically the generic debug statements you can make. So they're normally just text output. Those go to that console. The nice thing about this is it is a text window and you can scroll back. In Propeller Tool, the generic debug window is not scrollable. Now you can output to a file, so you could go back and look at it, but you have to go out to that file. Marco also logs to a file if you want to do that. So here's the configuration thing. This is what makes it really nice. And again, if you went back and looked even a year ago at Spin Tools then versus now, because so many people have made really good suggestions, and Marco was like, hey, yeah, that's a good idea, and he puts them in. So it's very, very highly configurable. And so this is, like any configuration in a lot of programs. You start with, general, and so you can make the thing look the way you want, including enabling and disabling the toolbar, the object browser, and the file browser. And then remember when I was telling you, in the slide that I had, it was a very busy, map of folders. These are the ones that I use normally, so I can make it very clean. So you can configure that any way you'd like. The console is that output, so you're able to select your font and how long it is and write to a file if you want. Very simple, and other things. This is just, I'm very finicky. Everybody in the room knows that about the way I write code. This plays to my finicky coding nature. So I'm able to set this up. My tab stops the way that I like them. And there's really nice things too, where, for example, you can even set the thickness of the little indent lines, which are very helpful to see. Sometimes, as we're getting older, some of us, you make them a little thicker. We can see those indents easier. One of the things you'll see that I didn't like, so I asked Marco if he could get rid of this, and he did. He had a feature that says highlight the current line. I can see the cursor. I don't want to highlight in the current line because it was using a shading that was really similar to the background, and I was getting fooled by it from time to time. But again, he's very accommodating, and he put that stuff in. To be honest, I don't know what code modification modifiers are. These are new, but you'll see the nice thing is with the code, and I'll show you live, if you hover over something for a bit, it will show you information about that. So for example, if you were following Google's guidance and using my pixel library, and you had a method called to the pixel library and you hovered over that, it will show you that method call, and then it will pull from my library or any library or even your own code, the documentation comments, and it will put those in a flyout for you. So this is good because it'll encourage us too, when we're writing libraries for ourselves or for others, to document them using those documentation comments, so that when somebody hovers over a call to that method, they get, they get information that's useful. One of the things that is recently added, some of you remember around Christmas time, we had the Christmas kit, and with the and this was on a P1. So if I wasn't clear, this will work with P1 and P2. They're compilers for both. And we have the, Michael made the Wi-Fi, adapter. And, those are different because those have to be connected into our network. So they can be remembered here. So this is, you see where it says holiday kit, that's my little holiday kit board that I left set up. And you can see the IP address on my router. This was a recent addition. There was some people, I think, on the Mac were having trouble with the serial downloads. Again, with Windows, I never had any troubles, but Marco was very, very patient. I don't think he has a Macintosh computer, so he was listening to guy, and people were doing tests. At any rate, he has sorted out. Apparently, the Mac downloads are really good now. What I like is down at the bottom of this box, I have a a touchpad on my computer, and it uses serial COM3, and it's annoying that I see, because it's not usable to me. At least in Spin Tools, it gets ignored, and I don't ever have to worry about that. So here's where, again, because you set up, you can do both propellers. So here's where we set up the Spin 1 stuff. Now, the way I do it may not be the way everybody does it. I have a single unified library. And as I said, I still use Propeller Tool. I often start my projects there. So you can see I'm pointing to the Propeller Tool library, and I put my stuff there. Now, when you do a first-time install and you don't change any configuration values in Spin Tools, it has its own libraries, and it separates them Spin 1 and Spin 2. I prefer to keep things together, but again, you have your choice. It's very highly configurable. It's what I like about it. There's nothing that is really forced on you. And the people that know me for more than 5 minutes know, again, I'm a maniac for formatting. So I always start with a template. And so I can point to my own template. So when I say, hey, give me a new P1 program, I get a fresh template with all the stuff that I want, and I build from there. And here's some of the compiler rules. You see, like removing unused methods. So those, we held up one of the laser tag devices earlier. The code on that, if to fit all the code, we would need to have a P1 that could do about 128K. So we can't. And then, so we end up breaking it into smaller programs. But even our player program, which is the main program, and Josh will happily, in a break, let you run around like the kids yesterday, shooting at each other with a laser tag gun. So it was a bit of a free-for-all in here. Yes, it was kind of fun. Anyway, the program is, because, all of us write libraries, and we think, okay, this is what I need, but what might somebody else need? And so we put libraries together that have a lot of functionality in there. Now, Propeller Tool doesn't remove unused methods. So that became a problem, for us with the tagger. No, we don't use the pixel library in that, but we have lots of other libraries, and we were running out of code space. Luckily, initially, some of you may remember a long time ago, there was a guy named Brad down in Australia who created a work-alike compiler called Brad Spin Tools, and he had unused method removal. So that's what we originally used. Now we're using this, and Marco does a better job. We actually have a smaller footprint in our EEPROM now. So if you run into memory constraints, you have the ability to come in and say, hey, remove unused methods. Now, in a normal world, well, like in C, for example, if we program in C, it's case sensitive. Spin is not. Spin is very, very forgiving, but you can, and I do it when I know I'm only using my own libraries. I turn on the case sensitivity because I'm a maniac and I want my code to look and work perfectly. And so again, it's more and more flexibility. And you see, I won't go through all the description. You're all programmers. You understand what these mean. But there's really great stuff here. It's a very active tool, tells you what's going on, gives you little suggestions, and I think it is a real nice productivity tool. You can see in the P2, that's all the same kind of settings. Although there is a situation there because for the clock setter for the PASM stuff, because the Spin 2 is unique where we can have pure assembly code. We can't do that in the P1, but in the P2 we can. So there's a couple little things there to cope with that. The terminal, again, there's nothing for here other than the font that I care about, and I think we're done at the end. And then, so here is one of the things that I was really, really happy about, and just for sanity's sake. So as I told you, Spin Tools has its own compilers, and it's built in, it's running all the time. But that guy back there, Chip Gracie, he's the standard. That's the canon for Spin. And not that I don't trust Marco, I do. He's an amazing guy. But Chip, say, hey, look at this. We got a new feature. Well, that takes time to get down to the other tool makers, to Marco and to Eric in Canada who makes Flex Prop. It takes time to propagate. So I asked Marco about a year or so ago, hey, can you make it so that we can do a compilation with an external tool? I think people would appreciate that, because there are some people now, the output from Marco's compilers is just like with Peanut, is that it's Spin bytecodes, so it's interpreted. But a lot of people like to use the direct to assembly aspect of FlexProp, once they have their code working. So you have both camps. So Marco did add this, and again, I'm very grateful. So because it allows you to test, you do the things you want, and specifically, Chip has done all of these really interesting debug windows for the P2. Some of them Marco has. I'll show you a couple of them, but there's a lot of things that they're not caught up yet. Well, now if I want to try one of the debug windows, I can now I can do my code, make sure everything's working. Because Marco is pretty quick. What happens is when Chip releases a new version of Peanut, Marco grabs it, grabs the source code for the interpreter that helps him sort things out, and then he starts, trying to match those features. And then he does a test where he looks at the binary output from Peanut versus his binary output, trying to make them match. And sometimes there's some iterations there. I think the structure stuff has been a little bit complicated, and there's been some challenges there. And there's somebody overseas that seems to be doing some really interesting things. I don't know what he's doing, but it looks interesting with structures. And he's been giving lots of feedback to Marco, saying, okay, this works in Peanut, not quite working here. And you can see the backboard. It's a great thing about the public forum. You can see that and learn from it. Maybe you say, oh, here's an aspect I didn't think about, for coding. Maybe I can put that to work in what I'm doing. So this is in the tools menu. This lets you set up and be able to launch external tools. Now, so you can see if I want to just run, code on a P2 in RAM, I can do that. I have highlighted the RAM with debug. And so, there's some other things that are here. And what happens is when you create one of these things or edit it, it comes up where, at the top you can see, you can give it a name, and then you have a command line to it, and then there are the arguments that you can send out. Now, because this is done with Java, and like in the Windows environment, people often use spaces in tabs. You have to be a little careful with that. So if you look at my program path, you'll see it's surrounded by quotes to make sure that everything gets out. But this will let me run any of Chip's debug windows, while editing within the environment of Spin Tools. It's really nice. I get the best of both worlds. I've got this really comfortable, nice, helpful editing environment, and then I have the latest to date tool for compiling. So it's again, Marco has done a really great job. It's a huge benefit to the community. Some of the things I talked about this in a minute. It's just-in-time compilation, so it lets you know. I won't go through all of this stuff. You can see it. And down the bottom, I had just added, he is adding more and more debug windows. So right now you have the standard debug window. And one of the things that Chip, and I'm grateful for, added recently is an element to the plot window where you can do the graphics thing. So if you see that thing by Josh with the LED tower, and on there, there's a little there's a next gen display. And so we use those quite a bit. My friend John uses next gen in one of his products. So it's this little touchscreen display. And that has this feature. We don't need to see it here. That has a feature where in the next gen, so if you look at that, if you press a button, the button will light up. Well, that's not a widget inside of the next gen. They're widgets I don't like, but they have this cool feature where you can have a graphic, and it's, you know, consider it a stack where this is the off graphic, this is the on graphic, and you're looking down from this way. And you can define a region. And so if you touch that region, you can say, hey, show me that region from this graphic. So if you look with what I did with that product, I have a tool that I like. What is it, Josh? Inkscape. There's become a running joke with us. I say, one of my favorite tools, and he just shouts Inkscape. Inkscape is a freeware vector editor. It is, so, you know, if you don't want to pay Adobe for Illustrator, get Inkscape. It's a really nice little tool, and it outputs PNG files, which I can work directly in the next-gen display. So what I do is I draw all my screens, and then for those that have buttons, or for example, if you play with the tower, there's little slider buttons. Well, those are just a graphic with the thing moved over. And so in the display, if I click on the slider, it says, okay, I'll just show you the thing from the bottom. And you get this really nice, beautiful interface. And since I'm drawing it larger and I'm outputting, it's taking care of nice anti-aliasing, it looks really nice. And our customers thought, wow, that's our customers were really responded well. I think John's have too. And the nice thing is, you know, because we're all, I don't have my phone with me, but we all carry touchscreens now, and people intuitively know how to deal with them. And, you know, we've seen it. I know John has, because I talk to him all the time. His customers say, hey, now, can I have this feature? Because now they just assume you can do it. And we all do. So here is one of on this particular screen I was talking about. He's adding in Marco's adding in some of the debug things. So this shows you can see a little LED counter on there that looks like LED. So I spent a few minutes making what looked like aluminum and some LEDs, and some are lit and some are not lit. I may actually have this. Oh, so is my editor showing? Oh, did I? All right, well, I know you all believe me that I only lie to girls. So I will, at any rate, it's really nice that you can do kind of graphic thing. And this is not a terribly useful thing, but I remember there was a gentleman who used to work for NASA, who's often on the Zoom calls. He may be on the Carol, who did an interesting thing with some of the original debug windows, where he made this kind of NASA control thing, and it was really neat. And I thought, well, now here you could do this graphically with switches and all those kinds of things. And, you know, and again, I will thank Chip in public. You know, I had a need for this because I wanted to be able to do some stuff. He and I've known each other a very long time. And so I called him up. I needed some other help. And I said, hey, I got an idea. And we talked for about 20 minutes. And the next day he called me. He said, hey, I got it working. So it's nice to have that, because it was a productivity tool. You know, I liberated a little bit of his time to do it, but I think having that capability is useful. And I was thinking about Gavin Garner too. And, you know, because his students had asked, he worked with Gavin to do a lot of graphic things, right? Because they're doing in their education system. So some of those things are only available in Windows. This that I'm showing here is running native. I'm sorry, I'm not showing it live, but so you can do the basic debug window and you can do the plot window. in any operating system with Spin Tools. If you have Spin Tools IDE, if you're a Windows user, you can still use Spin Tools and do any of the debug windows, but you need to launch Peanut as through the manual tools menu. And so you have, again, for those of us sort of Windows users, we have a bit of an advantage there. But Marco is working to get those things involved. And again, it's tools are important. We all have our favorite wrench, right, or our favorite hammer. It feels good in our hand, so we feel like we can do the work. I think programmers and IDEs are the same way. We all have different, deals with the way we want to feel about it. And I really like, again, I was spoiled by Jeff. It was Jeff and Chip that came up with the idea of the color backgrounds, and I'm spoiled by that. Well, now I'm still spoiled, and now I've got all these other things too. And if I ever wanted to, I run Linux occasionally in VMs, and I could program directly there. So again, well done, Marco, and thank you. There's one thing, there was a recent ad that John, my friend in the back, has actually taken advantage of. There may be times, and you don't mind me talking, do you, John, about the way John does specialty stuff. He does these camera controls, and he works very hard for his customers, and occasionally he'll make improvements, but he doesn't want to say, okay, you got to open your box and you got to get Propeller tool, and I'm going to, it can a little bit tricky. So this came up in a conversation a few months ago, right? And there was a Windows program called Propellant that I think it does that, but that's Windows centric. And some of John's clients are Mac, a lot of them in the entertainment industry. So Marco has created a mechanism whereby you can save a binary file. That's nothing that we haven't been able to do before. But now, just like with the IDE, which I told you earlier, you download a zip file and open it up, and it's ready to go. You can do that with this loader program that he has, and then the loader program allows you. I don't know. Does my cursor show here? So in the top, you can select a binary file, and then scan the ports that you might have, and then download it right in. So John is able to use this with his clients, regardless of their operating system, so he can send them an updated program. Now, he trusts them. The people that John works with are capable people. They're working with millions of dollars worth of gear, so they can open up the thing and plug in a Propeller tool. But now he can get them the code, and there's no exposure. He's not having to send source code or anything like that, or have them open some people might open up an IDE and get a little nervous because there's a lot of stuff there. But this is a nice, clean, easy window, and boop, it downloads right in. So this is a very recent feature. And again, it's one of those kind of things that I appreciate about Marco and Jeff and Eric and all the tools writers. For those of us that are developers, when we ask, we mean it. And when you do it, we're grateful. And I certainly am, and will continue to say that publicly. Yes. Yeah. I've probably talked about all of these things. So these are some differences, and we'll put this presentation up if you want it. But there's some minor differences between Peanut and Propeller tool. But if you have something that compiles properly in Peanut or Propeller tool, and then you take it over Spin Tools, it will work. There are just some advantages or some things that you can do. Now, some of them I wouldn't do. So for example, that first line, you can have a local variable with the same name as a global variable. Now, so you can't do that in Peanut or Propeller tool. And I would never do that in my code. I'm too stupid to keep track of what's a global and what, because I don't want to add a L underscore variable name and G underscore. I don't do that. So, but you can in here, and I tested it and tried it. It will tell you, hey, that local variable has the same name as this global. Are you sure you want to do this? So it lets you do it. So somebody must have asked. I wouldn't have, but anyway, it's there. So lots of good stuff. Again, we are blessed to have the Propeller one and the Propeller tool there. I get out and about a little bit of tech stuff, and Rick will say, we work in the entertainment business. You meet other tech people, and they'll say, why the propeller? And it's an easy list to iterate. And sometimes people won't believe us, and then we say, here. So we were at I'm going to tell stories. We were at a DEF CON, and this young lady came up to me and was a bit sharp, which I'm okay with. I am too. So, and was telling me, no, the Arduino is better. I said, go get your Arduino on your computer. And we sat down and we started going through it. And she said, wow, that's right. So I won that argument. And not that there aren't a lot of good processors out there, but we're the Propeller is unique and gives us the flexibility to do things that people wouldn't. Rick works in a very high tension industry where things change on set and with no notice, and he's got to be able to deal with it. And he can, and we can. I've had friends and customers call and say, hey, help, and we can. So we're lucky to have the silicon that we have, and we're now blessed with multiple tools and people that are very open to our suggestions to help us be more productive. This is probably my last thing. Oh yeah, so these are my programming reminders for Johnny and Mac's Nutty Solid Programming. Start with a template. I don't care if it's mine. Start with a template. Be consistent with your style so people recognize it and you recognize your own code. Use appropriate symbol names. Long names for globals. You can use short names for locals. That's kind of the style you use. Add comments for clarity. I hate when I see Z equals X plus Y and the comment says add X and Y together, put it in Z. So I can see that. Why are you telling me there too? But so don't do that. Probably nobody in this room would do that. Always, I had this the other day. Somebody was asking for help on a tech thing. I said, do you have the data sheet? No. Why not? Get the data sheet. So we both downloaded data sheet, got it sorted out. And study your code before running the code. One of the things is, I've been associated with Parallax since 1994. And so I have a lot of code, a lot of P1, a lot of basic stamp 1 code, basic stamp 2 code, a lot of SX code in the form of SXB, a couple of Java stamp programs, didn't do too much with that. And then when the Propeller hit, that made sense to me, the way it works. And so I have written thousands of Propeller 1 programs and getting close on Propeller 2. Most nobody will see. It's stuff that I do for myself or other people. And so it's nice to be able to go back in. The tagger code is about 9,000 lines of code. It's a lot. And so by having, following my maybe maniacal rules, but they're my rules. So, and I'm looking at the code, I can go back in and get really quickly up to date from code I wrote. I started writing the tagger code in 2015, I guess. Holy smokes, I didn't realize it was that long ago. It's a lot of code. Now that the tagger is settled. We can't do anymore. We're out of memory, so we want to move to the P2. But following these simple rules, even if just for yourself, they will, they'll help you. And Ken hasn't given me the stop talking sign, but I will stop talking unless you have a question. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.